So you might recognize this from a few other videos that I've done. It's a custom switcher that I've built just to compare things like tone capacitors or treble bleeds like in those other videos. Now today what I've done is I've wired it up so I can compare different humbucker split circuits. Now they're not all split coil circuits. There is a couple of partial splits as well, and then there's also the parallel setting, which is really popular, but it's all about getting single coil tones out of a humbucker. So inside a humbucker we've got two coils. We've got a north coil, which is the slug coil, and then we've got the south coil, which is traditionally the screw coil, and that's also the polarity of those coils, magnetic polarity. So you've got north and south. Coil splitting is essentially turning off one of these coils, giving the humbucker a single coil like sound. But I like to think of it as its own thing, because I think a really good split coil sound can sound amazing. It can sound as good as any other sound, and it's definitely its own individual thing. Now the humbuckers we're using today are McPherson 5150s, those ones I designed in that last video. Now the first test we're going to do is we're going to do the north coil split, the most common split there is. When you buy pickups and you've got a wiring diagram about how to split the coil, it's almost always shown as a north coil split. So that north coil is the one that is the active coil and the south coil is the one that's turned off. I'm also going to show the south coil split. Now I'm really interested to see what the difference is between the two, especially in this particular humbucker, because the north and south coils are wound differently. Then I've got parallel. So when you hear someone saying I've wired my humbuckers in series and parallel, series is just normal humbucker. That's just a normal humbucker sound. Parallel is the two individual coils wired like they are two individual single coils side by side. So essentially they're both in parallel and one isn't feeding the other one like in a humbucker. The advantage of this is that you get all the hum cancelling that you do with a humbucker, but you get a more single coil like sound. So I'm really interested to see how that compares to the north coil split, because that's kind of the standard split sound. Then I've got two enhanced splits, well, or partial splits, right? So we've got the PRS style splits. That's a 1.2K resistor going to ground. So that's the one that PRS use on the neck pickup, and that's the one we're using today as a neck pickup. And then I've got capacitance to ground, which is something I haven't played around with a lot before, but it's basically the same idea. You've got a capacitor going to ground. I found the best sounding one was a 330 nanofarad capacitor to ground. And then for the Fourthwall Plus members, I've got two additional splits that are really cool. So I've got a P90 simulator, which is a very cool little circuit. And then I've got one that I came up with and I call it the germanium split. That's a very cool circuit that I've had a heck of a lot of fun jamming with. So that's over on my Fourthwall page, links down in the description for that one. Okay, so let's get cracking into this. So first we've got the neck humbucker. That's the straight up neck humbucker sound. Now when I flick this one here, obviously we're just going to keep the volume and tone on full throughout this test. This is the standard north coil split. So if I turn that off, humbucker, and the standard split. So that is the standard split that you pretty much always are going to hear if you go off the manufacturer's recommendations for 99% of pickups out there. Now one thing we've got interesting here is I can change between north and south coil. So let's have a listen. So that's north coil, here's south coil. So let's do north coil a little bit. Here's south coil. That is really interesting. North again. I was expecting the north coil to be louder just because of how these are actually wound, but I'm guessing since the poles are a little closer to the strings on the south coil, those screws being, protruding through that cover there. Man, very cool. Now we've got the humbucker and a parallel. So that's the humbucker obviously. Parallel. It sounds really nice. Sounds really cool. What if I just split this? This is a normal North Coil split. So that's North split, here's parallel. And now I've got South Coil. Now I just want to move into some of the more, they're called partial splits. So we're going to put it into split mode again, but now I'm going to add a resistor to ground. So this is the PRS split. I'm using a 1.2K. So that's with 1.2K. This is just normal North Coil. Actually pretty subtle. Cool, and now I'm going to be engaging the North Coil versus the capacitor to ground. So I've used a 330 nanofarad capacitor. If you kind of go lower than that, I find the resonant frequencies are just too much and the whole pickup just sounds muddy and real murky. So this is going to be interesting. So that's at the moment, what are we on? North Coil at the moment. And here is the capacitor. Oh, sorry about that. I'm trying to play the same sort of thing over and over again. Really like the sound of that capacitor to ground. Let me just turn that off again. Back to, let's go South Coil this time. So this is South Coil. I actually really like the sound of the South Coil. Right, South Coil using that capacitor. And this is the North Coil with the capacitor. Just a lot, it's got more output, it's a lot brighter, even though that coil is not wound as loud, as probably an easy way to put it, as the North Coil on this pickup. Sounds great by itself. If we had that resistor. She just beefs it up slightly. It's quite... Let's with it off. Man, my favorite at this stage is capacitor with the South Coil on. So this is the humbucker again. Okay, and this is it split. One thing I found really interesting was just flipping the phase of the humbucker by itself. That's wide standard. Now if I flip the phase, I mean, it's probably just placebo. you can feel that the phase has been flipped. Like you can kind of feel it in your ears, but I'm not sure if it sounds any different. I normally treat them the same. I normally treat a phase flipped humbucker exactly the same either way. I don't think they sound any different. I've never really noticed it until I've been able to just do it like, I don't know, it's probably exactly the same. What else we got left? So we've gone through, we've got the humbucker, we've got the standard north coil split, we've got south coil split, we've got parallel, we've got north coil with resistor to ground, got the north coil with the capacitor to ground, 330 nanofarad. Then I've got south coil with resistor to ground. This is quite to wire this up actually took quite a bit of time to get this to work. That actually sounds quite nice. But this one, probably my favorite. What's that? South coil, and we're using the capacitor to ground. That's a good sound. To me, a massively educational test. There's so many things I've just learned about splitting humbuckers just because I can hear them so quickly side by side. It's kind of incredible the difference between certain ones that I thought would have hardly any difference, and then the very little amount of difference between other ones that I thought made a big difference, especially that resistor to ground. I always felt like that made a lot bigger of a difference. I mean, it's still definitely worth putting something like that in your pickup as like a small tweak, because I think a lot of what makes a guitar go from a good guitar to one you just absolutely love is all in that like 1%, and it's really about what you think about the sound. It doesn't, you know, it's never bothered me what the audience thinks. It's always about what I think. Do I like the sound? Does it make me feel like I can play better? When you get a tone that does that, it might be just that 1% that makes you feel that way, and it can be just like the difference between, like I said, this and this. I mean, that is a minimal difference. You can definitely feel the bass is lifted slightly. It's definitely slightly louder. It's probably why I use 2.2K when I put those in to a neck, and I'm often only ever splitting the neck anyway. If you want to split your humbuckers and get some more single coil sort of style tones, then have a listen through these and see what's sort of closest or what's in the ballpark of what you're after. Then you sort of can tweak it from there. You know what? I really loved that 330 nanofarad capacitor to ground on the south coil. I thought that sounded awesome. And this experiment has really changed what I'm going to be doing in the future as far as splitting pickups. I really preferred that south coil sound, especially with these 5150s. So I'm hoping this video has made it a lot easier for you to decide what you want to put in your guitar, and without having to sort of sit there and go through all these different circuits. The main issue is, for me, it's just created a lot more questions, and there's a lot more experimenting I want to do now. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed to this channel. I've got lots more stuff coming up, and we'll catch you in the next video.